Hi, my name is Mike, and I'm here to read a comic. Today's comic is Superman, issue number 275, dated May 1974. I would say this issue is probably a little below average for the very modest standards that Superman was being held to at this time. This is a comic I remember having when it originally came out. Honestly, I'm not sure whether a first grade student gave this to me or I just took it. I'm really not sure. I think he came in with a bunch of comics, and somehow I ended up with most of them, although I did not intend to do that. Also, what I remember about this specific comic was that when I was reading it, I was having a conversation with the kid, and he was saying, someday comic books are going to be $1. And I remember a couple of other people had mentioned that to me. And that was the big thing, that comic books someday would be so popular or so big that they would be, $1. And this is 1974 standards of living. And again, comic books were extremely popular. The big problem was this low price point for them, because the companies were ran really kind of badly. DC had their act together better than Marvel did in terms of the business. But nevertheless, DC's model was really outdated, and they really allowed another competitor to overtake them. I'm going to take a look at the cover. The cover is well drawn. It's Nick Cardy. Nick Cardy, 1974, 75. Nick Cardy, this guy was on point. He was Gil Kane's equal in my eyes. And the cover is a little cartoonish, though. We see Clark Kent throwing away his Superman outfit. We see this scared cat. He's doing it in an alley. He's totally disrespecting the Superman brand here. He's saying this is junk, and I'm going to go to a dirty old alley and make sure it's junk. And this poor cat is going to suffer for his hurt feelings. But this is being televised. And we see that there is a youngish, very well endowed new reporter for the station, and it's Lola Barrett. This is based on the popular gossip columnist Rona Barrett. Rona Barrett's an attractive woman, but she was not like this. She was not sporting these double D's and with this pretty little heart-shaped face that Nick drew. But nevertheless, Rona Barrett was a very popular gossip columnist, and this is sort of a play. DC was always sort of incorporating a lot of cultural references. It's very odd because the belief with DC was that they were sort of out of step with a lot of the kids today. But I think they actually leaned more on cultural references than Marvel did. The problem with DC was their structure. They had kind of this very machine-like production code that they followed. And the thing is it did get the comics out on time. They avoided those printer fees. Marvel would get brutal printer fees because they were kind of late with their stuff, and the printers hate that because it throws their whole production offline. But the thing with DC's model is that since you didn't have really one consistent voice for a title, and you had to be careful about what you're doing, what they were doing, how it would affect other titles, it kind of like you never got that serialization from DC. Because guys like Bob Hanley did not care what other people were doing. And this is a problem because you for example, you had Speedy, who had a heroin addiction. Bob completely ignored that. Speedy's forearms were clean in Bob's eyes. So anyway, this broadcast is going on. We're told that this is a electrifying exclusive, and that Superman has had it. He's had it with all those ungrateful people in the DC universe. I had mentioned the DC universe is very unforgiving. Superman could save the entire world from Thanos, should Thanos decide to cross over. And if Superman does one little thing that seems suspect, the entire world will turn on him the next day. So I'm going to go into it. Okay, so I'm going to start with this splash page here. It's kind of an unusual splash page in that there's sort of like, it's broken into panels here. And it's sort of kind of giving a preview of what the reader should expect. So these are kind of the clues that we should be watching for. Now, I'm going to take a look at the editorial. I'm going to look at the creative team. The story is by Cary Bates. Yeah, this is kind of Cary Bates. Yeah, it's what you expect from Cary Bates. Honestly, I think what happened with this story was that it was originally intended to be a Batman story. But Jules Schwartz was looking at it, and then he realized, hold it, this is too stupid for Batman. We'll put it in Superman. And we'll give it to Cary. He'll knock something out. Like I said, Cary Bates would dot the I's. He would cross the T's. Everything was tied up. Everything was, neatly done. But it was extremely convoluted. No one, I don't think the phrase Cary Bates and great story were ever put together. Also, Cary is still carrying that James Bond thing with him. I had discussed in a Superboy where editorial had announced that Cary Bates would be kind of like drafting a treatment for a new James Bond film that was coming out. I think that eventually became, Never Say Never Again. And Cary, there is some references to You Only Live Twice. Of all the Bond films, You Only Live Twice is the one that I've seen the least. I don't think I've ever seen it complete. I've seen parts of it, and the parts that I saw were really good. But honestly, I don't know enough of that story to sort of, find every little acorn. But it's clear that Cary's thinking about that film. The art team is by Kurt Swan. That's a plus. And Vince Colletta, and that is a negative. I am sure some very nice Kurt Swan art was just ruined by Vince. And the editing is by Jules Schwartz. And as I said, he probably envisioned this as being a Batman story. Then he realized, this is too stupid for Batman. Okay, so we see Lola Barrett, very attractive blonde, probably early 30s. And she's receiving a message from her brother that she thought had died a year earlier. Now, this is a thing where there are mental waves or premonitions coming to people. This is something that I think Cary kind of liked, because he did a whole Flash issue where he was receiving images from Earth 2. Or was it or DC Prime Earth? And then, from the DC Prime Earth. So he's receiving images and these telepathic thoughts from Earth Prime in the DC universe. And this is why he became a comic book writer, because, he's being spoon-fed these stories. So Cary's imagination, according to Cary, couldn't even create this. He has to kind of grep it from, another Earth. So anyway, Lola is seeing these premonitions of her brother. Then we're shown on the second panel, Superman, who is blandly landing in the park, and he is being stalked by some individuals, darkened individuals, Vince Colletta inked individuals. They're holding devices, but we don't know exactly what they are. And then we encounter a large dragonfly. And the story is The Dragonfly Invasion of Metropolis. You can turn the page. So it turns out that Clark Kent's TV station, WGBS, is investing in new infrastructure. And one of the things they're investing in is more transmitter towers to widen their signal. I grew up during the rabbit ears antenna days, and this is pre-cable, or very little cable existed, and my family didn't have cable until '79, and transmission could be a little wonky, and a lot of it had to do with the roofs. When we lived in the Bronx, we had a great roof. We were getting excellent transmission. We were even getting Long Island stations, and that's where I would watch Top Hat and Spider-Man. But then when we moved to Manhattan, we had a terrible roof in our building, and transmission was just horrible. And those rabbit ears just only helped a little bit. And you had to finagle them in a way that you get the best transmission. So this is what WGBS is doing. They want to get those people in those rural areas to listen to the news about the urban areas that they're too frightened to go in. And then it turns out that the news station, they hired Lola Barrett here to be a gossip columnist. We see her. This is her first telecast here. People are just gripped by this. And the thing is that Lola had moved from Hollywood to Metropolis, which is the analog for Chicago. Now, Morgan Edge is talking like this is a great thing for the station, and it's probably true. Probably a terrible move for Lola Barrett, because she's away from the gossip. Her whole thing is gossip, is being there, going to these parties, being, spoon-fed information or overhearing stuff or making note of what's going on. She doesn't have that anymore. Now, Chicago's not a small city. It's the second city, but it's not L.A. So this is a questionable career move by Lola, even though Morgan likes it. And Morgan's talking to Clark, telling him, Clark is validating Morgan Edge's decisions. Morgan Edge is saying, you're damn right. So, Superman will never lick a boot unless it's Star Sapphire's. But, he will kiss the boss's ass as Clark Kent. Because he's like, hey, I don't take any money being Superman, so I kind of have to give the appearance of being normal. And to Clark's favor, he does like that. Kal-El's favor, I should say. He does like being a normal guy sometimes. And yeah, he mentioned, it was mentioned in the movies, it was tough on him that sometimes, there were people in need of help, but he had to shut that down because he needed to be Clark Kent and kind of, take that weight off his shoulders. So anyway, the two are kind of having this nice little banter, Morgan Edge is talking about how much it is, saying that the ratings were beginning to slip, kind of looking at Clark, saying, hey, maybe you had something to do with that. And I'm going to bring her in to, kind of goose things up, get more views. She's talking gossip. Everyone loves, the gossip, except for Morgan. Morgan's kind of above that stuff. One of the things that Lola is talking about in her telecast is that there is a new film being shot by a Japanese film crew. And it's an epic called Enter the Dragonfly, which of course is a play on Enter the Dragon, which came out a year earlier. Poor Bruce Lee died probably a year earlier. And they're saying it's very realistic, and they're using, quote, made in Japan. It was around this time where Japan was really starting to flex their industrial might. And they were kind of flooding, America with their products, and it was really the first time that America had to actually compete with another country in terms of manufacturing. And it was kind of new at the time. It did generate a lot of anger with people. There were unfortunate incidences, but this is kind of the thing. Again, this is very timely. You can turn the page. So anyway, Lola is getting to the end of her segment, and right now she's about to tell the audience one of her special exclusives. And Morgan Edge, who says that he's above listening to gossip, he wants to listen to this gossip. So anyway, Lola breaks the news that a famous superhero that's able to leap tall buildings in a single bound has just scrapped his lifelong secret identity. This is a little weird. I never understood how people knew that Superman had a secret identity. I mean, he could have just said, hey, listen, I'm Superman 24/7. And that's that. But apparently, I guess Superman said, hey, by the way, to kind of clown you humans, like I kind of pretend to be one. And to kind of slum. This is the equivalent of Kryptonian slumming. Me pretending to be a human. And yeah, kind of fucking with your heads too. 'Cause you never know when you're going to be messing with Superman. Remember those guys in the diner in Superman 2? So anyway, Lola is saying that a citizen of Metropolis called Mark Hall had vanished without a trace under very mysterious circumstances. So while Lola isn't saying it directly, she's saying that, listen, Superman is throwing away his identity, secret identity, and it happened around the time that this guy Mark Hall disappeared. Coincidence? I don't know. So anyway, Lola's kind of like being a little vague, and she's nicely drawn. So Vince didn't ruin Kurt's artwork that way. Morgan Edge, he's very excited, basically, and excited in kind of a bad way. Because on one hand, Lola just said, hey, this is Superman's identity. He should be happy about this news. His station is gonna blow up. That they were the ones who broke who Superman's identity was, and she said that, hey, he walked away from this identity. So it's not like she's snitching on the guy. The guy said, listen, I'm giving up Superman according to my sources. And so it's not like she's hanging Superman out to dry. Clark is listening to this too. It's kind of news for him, and he's saying, "Was Mr. Edge, according to Lola, his alter ego is deceased, wiped out." Personally, I find that hard to swallow. It's kind of like when we were talking about which Dick was best. Was it Dick York or Dick Sargent on Bewitched? I was like, kind of found both of those dicks hard to swallow. So Clark, this is kind of a phrase Clark likes to use. So anyway, the conversation is continuing. It's continuing in the WGBS building here. I guess this way, Kurt didn't have to draw any figures. He could just draw a building here, nice straight lines. And Clark is talking to Lola, which is understandable. Hey, Lola's kind of an attractive woman here. Clark, a little tired of Lois and her antics. He might be moving on to Lola. I would not blame him. So anyway, Lola seems confused about what Clark is talking about, because Clark is talking about Lola's big exclusive. But Lola's like, what exclusive? I don't remember, any exclusive. And then Clark says, do you want to go to the videotape and see exactly what you said? Going to turn the page. So anyway, Lola is watching the videotape. She's seeing the broadcast that we had just seen. Clark is like, you see, I told you. Then we see Lola. She's very upset here. She wants a shoulder to cry on. She's grabbing Clark. I don't. Clark is kind of like he has his hands on her, and we don't know whether Clark is pulling her back or maybe pulling her forward, saying, "Don't worry, baby. If you ever need a shoulder to cry on or a knee to bounce on, Clark is here for you." But anyway, what's going on in the story and not in my head is that Lola is saying that the name that she had given, Mark Hall, is her brother. But she thought that her brother had died a year earlier. And she feels that she's saying that I've been contacted by him. Clark is saying, calm down. This is a little too crazy for me here. And so Lola gets a grip on herself, and she explains her relationship with her brother. That she and Mark were twins. And being twins, they found that they had this kind of psychic bond between them. And it's kind of a very specific bond. And Lola is in flashback mode here. And apparently it happened during their 10th birthday, because they have the same birthday. And the thing is, Mom and Dad and Lola were at the table with the birthday cake, but where's Mark? They don't know where Mark is. And Lola suddenly cries out, "Help! I'm caught in the well, in the back of the house." This is not a well-written sentence here. Her parents obviously find this odd because she's sitting right in front of them and she's not in any type of well. But then Lola explains that she felt that Mark had compelled her to say this. And she felt like his aura was in her head. Now the dad, it looks like the dad thinks it's very ridiculous. The mom is like, well, there is women's intuition, and we kind of like horoscopes and stuff. So mom was a little bit more open-minded. She said, "You know what? Let's check out the well." Turn the page. And it turned out Mark was in the well. He was actually hanging on to the well's walls, and he was about to fall. So he was holding on for dear life. So the dad, of course, pulled Mark out. He was safe. But then, as they were kind of discussing what was going on, I think Lola and Mark had kind of figured out they had kind of this psychic link because they were twins. And the thing is that Lola would act as the receiver, and Mark was the transmitter. So the thing is that the communication was one way. It was very specific, where whatever Mark was thinking about, it would be transmitted, or he was able to transmit it to Lola. Now, this is a little dangerous here. You think they're coming the same age. There's puberty. When Mark is like opening his magazines, he's thinking, hey, this chick is hot. Lola's getting this images. And the thing is, she has to know which ones he's looking at. Maybe Mark's like looking at Black Tail, getting a thing there. Maybe he's checking out the Asian chicks, or the big boobs, or he's thinking about foursomes and stuff. And Lola is getting all of this. So that's kind of a little dangerous. I hope Mark had like some type of way to block this. They did experiment with the link, and they found out that the radius was about a mile. So if Lola and Mark were within a mile's radius of each other, the link would work. Now, obviously, Lola's surprised because she believes Mark is dead, that this link is gone. But this is clearly an experience she's had before. And apparently, Mark was kind of a daredevil here. He had close experiences with death, and then he'd cry out for his I can't say little sister because they're the same age, little sis or big sis, and then she'd kind of save him. And Lola's thinking that somehow Mark contacted her, but she also knows that she's been told Mark is dead, so she's thinking that maybe Mark is doing this from beyond the grave. You only live twice. So anyway, Lola's very upset. The station has their own medical physician. So there's a studio physician there at WGBS station. I worked in one place where they did have a medical office. They had a nurse. If you had any scrapes or something like that, they would kind of help. They were like kind of school nurses. This was Bloomingdale's. But other than that, I don't recall ever having like a physician on hand. Do you know how much that would be abused, given how horrible healthcare costs are? So anyway, Clark is watching this. He's concerned about Lola. He likes Lola. Sees her as a good backup, in case Lois kind of goes a little cuckoo. But then again, after hearing this story, he might be thinking, hold it, Lola might be a bigger nutbird than Lois. But nevertheless, he's going to investigate, and he's taking the position that Mark did make this contact. Now, he doesn't know which plane of existence Mark is. Mark is in this plane of existence or from beyond. Nevertheless, he's going to take a look into it. And he runs into the storeroom where he does his, I'm going to turn the page, his transformation into Superman here. So we see the storage room is filled with binders. I'm assuming these are the binders that Mitt Romney was talking about when he talked about binders of women. Superman, he flies off. We do see a blimp in the background. That you have to read this issue at least once for that to be noticeable. Otherwise, it just looks like it's in the background. But but that's a clue. Superman, he's talking about how he would approach this. He would need to approach this like a master detective, like Batman, which leads me to believe that this was originally intended as a Batman story until they found out how stupid it is. However, as Superman is flying, he's immediately intercepted by a large dragonfly. Superman's kind of confused by this at first. Then he realizes it's a dragonfly. Then he realizes that, hey, Lola talked about a Japanese film crew doing a monster film with the dragonfly. Enter the dragonfly. And again, we see the blimp here again. And so Superman, he's a little slow to catch on, but he's catching on. He's making those connections. We see the film crew here. The coloring is quite offensive here. They're very yellow looking, which one is kind of something that was normally associated with Chinese people, not Japanese people. And two, they shouldn't be using this type of coloring, to designate them as Asian. I know that when Jim Steranko was doing Master of Kung Fu, he really enjoyed it, but when he looked at the comic, he was kind of disturbed. He didn't really know why. And he had an Asian friend, and he asked his Asian friend, do you find this offensive? And the Asian friend, Starlin's Asian friend, said, yeah, this is offensive. And that's why Starlin had left that script, that title, because he had done the first 3 issues, and they were really good issues. But Starlin did not like the way they were coloring the main character and the other Asian characters. Neil Adams talked about this. He said that when he did that famous issue number 87 with Jon Stewart in it. Originally, like the inks that they would use for black people, it was basically the same color as. He hated that. Going to turn the page again. The 1970s. What can you do? So anyway, we see a couple of the Japanese filmmakers here. I think it's the producer and the director. One is called Aki, and the other is called Osato. So anyway, I think a key is one who's handling the remote controls of the Dragonfly, but the remote controls they aren't responding. Superman here, he's obviously very concerned about this very large flying entity here. He doesn't care whether it's real or not. He says this thing is heavy, and I don't know how long it's going to stay in flight. Superman, he's noticing the issue with the mechanics, because the wings don't sound right to him. They're kind of vibrating in a way that's very dangerous, because they're sending out these powerful sound waves. And it turns out that there is a helicopter crew. I don't know whether they're a part of the filming or not, but nevertheless, the helicopter crew is caught in these sound waves. And their helicopter is smashed at this point. So the front glass bubble is totally smashed. The wings are being the helicopter's blades are being affected. The pilots themselves are being affected because their eardrums are in pain. The two pilots were tossed out of the helicopter, and so you have a helicopter with no pilots and falling pilots. This is definitely a job for Superman, and he has to figure out how to save him. And the first thing he does is he grabs the Dragonfly, and he's thinking, you know what? I'll put this thing to good use. And what he does as he's grabbing the Dragonfly, he uses his X-ray vision, his heat vision, to short out the electronics in the prop here. I'm gonna turn the page. And we see the pilots are landing on the Dragonfly prop in midair. I imagine, given that Superman had just used his heat vision, I'm sure their balls are cooking at this point. But the thing is, hey, it's better than going splat. And they're kind of confused. So I guess their questions will be answered when Superman lands. Now the thing is, the film producers, the director isn't happy about this, because when Superman showed up and he encountered the Dragonfly, they were filming the Dragonfly. Suddenly Superman shows up. The director's pissed off. The producer's like, holy crap, we got Superman in our movie, which is what their reaction should have been. So the producer is extremely happy. The director, he's kind of like, but my story, my art, my vision, it did not envision this white Superman coming into our lives. The producer's saying, fuck that, dude, we're gonna make bank at the box office. So anyway, kind of things are sorted out at this point, and Superman decides to do a little bit of research. Now, because he has like super recall memory, they're able to shorten the story quite a bit, because it's very convenient to have a guy who not only has recall memory, but he has perfect recall memory. He doesn't have to go through these microfiches to look at old copies of the Daily Planet. And Kal-El, he's a good employee. His product, he works at a news station. The product is the news. He follows the news, and he's following the Daily Planet here. Now, Superman does remember a story. It was a front page story about the death of Mark Hall, who was identified as a salesman. His front page picture: man dies in one car wreck. Interesting. He gets a tremendous amount of press coverage. We'll find out later why this is the case. we see Superman with this extremely bland look on his face, kind of like he's judging Mark, saying, "This guy isn't good looking. He's not good looking. What's so interesting about this guy?" He looks like he just wants to go home and get a drink. And they're mentioning, like a master detective, the Metropolis Marvel investigates and probes every aspect of Mark Hall's accidental death. They're going, Superman's going to the funeral homes. He's going to the morgue, and they're finding that he died in a car crash. He died in a 1973 Cobra. I don't know what type of car that was, or even if that car existed. Like I said, I'm not a car person. Turn the page. So anyway, as Superman is investigating this, his investigation is drawing attentions from the authorities, because they're wondering, why is Superman investigating this, and why is he investigating this guy? And it's a problem for these guys that Superman is investigating that guy, if that made any sense. So anyway, it looks like the medical examiner and the mortician, they're talking amongst themselves. And they think that, Superman might suspect something. So this is our first hint that there's something up with Mark Hall. Now, we go back to Metropolis Central Park. Once again, the Japanese film crew, they're filming their monster epic. The electronics of the Dragonfly, they have gone out again. And it's frightening these kind of park goers here. Superman's nearby. He flies. He intercepts the Dragonfly, and he brings it down. The thing is that he wasn't quite sure whether that was acting or not, or whether that was intentional or not. But the thing is, Superman was able to hear the heartbeats. So he was channeling Daredevil here. He noticed the heartbeats, and he noticed the heartbeats were very real. So anyway, Superman, as I said, he noticed that the actors were in a panic because their heartbeats were doing it. The producer and the director of the film, they're saying, "Thank God you happened to be here. Thank God you bailed us out. We don't have to fill out those insurance forms." This is the second time we've had this problem. So these guys know that this Dragonfly device is a hazard. They've had multiple situations where people could have possibly been murked, and they're like, hey, it's okay. We can still film. The two Japanese creative guys here, they don't understand what's going on. They're thinking that maybe they should have been filming in Japan. It's the director. He's like, I wouldn't have this this big honky mofo in my film. Superman is condescendingly saying, "Listen, why don't you just strip that thing down and check it out for any cross wires? Hey, I know it's expensive, but what the fuck?" But as this exchange is going on, and by the way, Superman is noticeably taller than these two Asian men. There is a individual who has been inked in Vince Colletta style, and he's reporting on what's going on at this moment because Superman is now officially under surveillance. I'm going to turn the page. Superman's about to fly off. Then he sees an attractive young woman, kind of like a Lana Lang woman. She's whispering for help, but she's saying very quietly. And Superman notices this, and he comes out and he runs to her rescue. But then two men come out and they fire this ray beam at Superman. And Superman says, "Great Scott, it was a trap." So anyway, we're now at a heavily fortified government building just outside Metropolis. This thing has electrified fence here. It's really out of place in such a large city. It reminds me of an episode of the 1967 Spider-Man cartoon where the New York City had their own missile base. So the thing is, there were problems with the missile base, and Spider-Man had to check out the New York City missile base to make sure their missiles wouldn't go off. But again, like I said, Kurt Swan, he doesn't have to draw figures here. He just has to draw a fence in a building. In New York City, we actually do have a building like this. It's very dense, very thick, very fortified, very secretive, um, and very sensitive. It's just kind of like in Lower Manhattan. So anyway, we see this guy here. He kind of looks like the guy who would kind of like sell popcorn, like Orville Rettenbacher here, and he's kind of explaining that he's explaining the situation to Superman, that we have these stun guns here. We kind of have to make sure we can keep tabs on you, keep control of you. Now this guy, he's actually showing them. He's actually showing Superman these things. Now, why Superman didn't grab them out of his hand and crush them, saying, "Listen, I don't want any authority. I don't want you to have any type of authority over my body. So I'm gonna have to take these things away from you. And if you have a problem with that, I'll take the hands that held those things away from you." So that's what you would think Superman would do, but he's okay with this. He's kind of like, hey, I'm an establishment guy. If I can't trust the establishment to keep tabs on me, why am I defending this establishment? That's what Superman is thinking. So it's a little convoluted here, but again, this is Cary Bates. Again, it's sort of like this is now where we're kind of getting into that James Bond film. Apparently, Mark Hall was a top agent for the government, and he retired. And the thing is, he couldn't just retire because he had a lot of secrets. He also may have had a lot of enemies within the spy realm. And the thing is, they had to arrange it so Mark was publicly dead. So it wasn't like Mark could just simply retire and kind of like go to strip joints and stuff like that under his name. They had to create this elaborate death for him. Again, like You Only Live Twice, where they had to basically bury James Bond at sea, and they had to make it look so good they actually dumped James into the ocean, where the guys picked him up. But anyway, the thing is that that when Mark retired, he to a great sacrifice to himself, he had to let everyone that he loved know that he was kind of dead. Gonna turn the page, and that's why they were concerned about Superman investigating, because they're like, "Hey, why are you digging up this?" Superman is explaining that Hall's sister, his other relatives, why couldn't they be told? And we see Orville Rettenbacher just saying that listen, it was a great sacrifice he had to do, but he did it for his country. He kind of did it so like he wouldn't be kidnapped and tortured, and have to give up all these secrets. Superman flies off. The thing is, with Orville Rettenbacher, he didn't really understand the communication that was going on. Orville gave up everything he had to say. But when Orville wanted information back from Superman, Superman was, "Hey, dude, I gotta go. Bye." So Superman kind of finagled that information where he got the information he needed, but at the same time, he didn't have to give up any information himself. So Superman's flying off. He's checking this out. He knows that the brother's alive. So the thing is, now he's looking for an entity, and because he had gotten that news earlier that the radius was about a mile. So Superman, what he's going to do, he's going to kind of just search that one radius. Now he knows where Lola is. Lola is at the news station. So the thing is, he's going to check a mile within the news building, because Lola said that's the transmission range. And so Superman, he's flying off here, and he's kind of looking. Again, we see a couple of images of the blimp flying around, and so Superman's just going to use his X-ray vision. So he's kind of using a blunt move here, blunt instrument, He's just gonna check out everyone within a mile of the building. And turn the page. Same way we go back to the Japanese film crew. They're working on the Dragonfly. They think they have it fixed, but they're going to test it out. They say, hey, listen, we have a very heavily populated city here. We'll test out our big, dangerous prop here. I'm sure nothing will go wrong. So the producer, he's very concerned about this. He's telling he's telling the director, who is kind of one of the electronics guys too. So it's like director / electronics guys. And listen, if this doesn't work, when we go back to Japan, you're going to be working at the Sony transistor radio factory, and your life will end. Well, you will have a long but miserable, boring life there. So anyway, we see Superman. He's circling around the city, that 1 mile radius. He doesn't see any trace of Mark Hall. So he thought this was kind of a good idea, but his hunch isn't panning out. And again, we see the blimp. And Superman saying that maybe Mark was already abducted and that his abductors had moved him. He's saying, how can I face Lola? Tell her I failed to find her brother. While with this very bland look on his face. Then we're told, suddenly the remorseful Man of Steel's thoughts are interrupted by a familiar drone sound. Turn the page. And we see it's the Dragonfly back. Really, guys, come on. Superman must be thinking, these guys just aren't getting it. So the Dragonfly is heading toward the blimp, the Good Day blimp that we've seen multiple times. The Dragonfly flies into the blimp, kind of like Black Sunday here, and the undercarriage of the blimp is falling here. The bridge, I should say, of the blimp is falling. This is obviously where the people are. This is very heavy. This can cause a lot of problems. But Superman, he rushes toward it to obviously rescue it and to make sure it lands safely. But he also realizes, hey, the case has been broken. The Dragonfly broke the case. And the thing is that Mark wasn't being held on the ground. He was being held above the ground. Apparently, the spy abductors who had kidnapped him, they were holding him hostage, or they were holding him, retaining him, actually in the blimp. So as he was going around, as the blimp was going around, that's where Mark was, and his abductors. I'm gonna turn the page. So Superman, he lands Mark on the blimp. Superman's kind of impressed here, saying, hey, who would have thought they would have, kidnapped the guy and put him on a blimp? The police squads, they're out there checking everything out. They're not looking in the sky. And then Superman, he goes back, he grabs the remaining part of the bridge. Because remember, as the bridge was falling, Superman just grabbed Mark, got him on the roof, then he came back for the bridge. Luckily, physics is a little slower in the DC universe. But nevertheless, then Superman, what he does is he grabs part of the fuselage of the blimp, he spins it around and around, just kind of like, this huge rotating amount of energy is being created. I guess he wants to confuse and the remaining spies there. This, honestly, what Superman is doing here would have turned these guys into orange juice, the same way that the guys in the Titan submersible were. But again, DC Universe physics works differently. So anyway, Superman, after dealing with that, he gets those guys, he calls whatever 3-letter agency he needs to call. Those guys are under arrest. Then Superman comes back. He's flying with Lola here. So we see pretty Lola here. She's in a nice little purple skirt here, looking cool, and we see Lola and the brother are reunited here. And Superman's kind of just wrapping things up, just saying that, Mark will have to take another identity, but at least his sister and his family won't be mourning anymore. They'll just have the trauma of that 1 year where they thought he was dead. I have a buddy, and he told a story. He told this on his podcast, which way more people listen to him than me. And what had happened was he had told his sister when they had an argument that mom and dad never told you were adopted. And the sister just kind of stayed quiet and kept it quiet. And then 3 years later, the sister and the parents were having an argument. And at one point, this guy's sister said, "You never told me I was adopted." And his face dropped when she said that, because she had spent 3 years thinking that she was adopted, when he was just pissed off and just wanted to say something to irritate her. So anyway, it wraps up with Lola in her newscast here. She's just saying that the film crew, they filmed their stuff. The newly installed transmitter towers is working fine, and Superman boosted its signal using the Dragonfly's guidance system. Superman's not paying any royalties to these guys. He's saying, "Fuck you! You've given me enough problems. If you have an issue with the patent, you can sue me in that Kryptonian court. You just go to Krypton and get papers served. I'll respect those. Otherwise, shut the hell up." And Lola's saying, "Looks like Enter the Dragonfly would have been one of pictures better off made in Japan." This is Lola Barnett signing off from Metropolis. Okay, and that is it. We're told that the next story, and they always knew what the next story was, because this probably was written by Elliot Magden. The story they said we'd never print: Superman battles the world's mightiest mortal in Make Way for Captain Thunder. And we're told that any resemblance to mightiest mortals, real or fictitious, purely coincidental. And we're told that it's going to be on sale the third week of March. DC had just required the rights to Captain Marvel, Shazam. So obviously this is a play on Superman versus Shazam, because it was known. In fact, DC proved it in court that Shazam was a ripoff of Superman. And because of that, Captain Marvel had to go dormant. Now, in between that time and DC requiring the rights to C.C. Beck's Captain Marvel, the copyright had expired because the property was dormant, and no one renewed it. And Martin Goodman, who was obsessed with the idea of having a hero called Captain Marvel in Marvel Comics, he quietly just got the rights to it. And this is one of the few creative things that Martin Goodman, who was the business guy who owned the comic book company, he did without Stan Lee's knowledge or even approval. Stan Lee was like, "Why are you doing this?" But Martin Goodman wanted that name, and once he got that name, he told him to do something with this character. And when DC finally got the rights to use the original Captain Marvel, they really could not use it as the name of the title. They had to call the comic book Shazam. And I remember when the live action TV show came out, and he was always referred to as Captain Marvel in the show, but the show's name was Shazam. And the reason is that because Martin Goodman had grabbed the copyright or the trademark, the copyright, to Captain Marvel. DC could call him Captain Marvel, but they couldn't promote him as Captain Marvel. They had to call it the comic Shazam. Whenever they promoted him, they had to say it's Shazam, not Captain Marvel. And and the thing is, they created this story, and they created Captain Thunder, which is basically an analog of Captain Marvel, and it begs the question: why didn't they just use Captain Marvel in that issue? Why create this one issue analog rather than using the property that you just acquired? Again, these comic book companies, they were not the best run companies in the world. So anyway, we do have a B story. I'm going to turn the page. And we are going to hear a story from the fabulous world of Krypton. These stories always have some danger in them, in that we know Superman likes to clown kids. He likes to punk them. Superman's a terrible babysitter. He will put kids in situations where they will get concussions or fractured bones or broken bones. And Superman kind of finds humor in this. He will also starve children. There was one issue where Clark Kent, he was Clark Kent the entire issue, he refused to let this one kid eat. He was like, whenever this kid was hungry, Clark was finding this excuse to make sure that kid didn't eat. So we're going to see how he punks these kids here. And he has about 2, 4, 6, 8. He has about 9 kids to punk here. So we're told one sultry afternoon, a certain man of steel makes a surprise visit to the orphanage in Smallville, where he had been adopted by Jonathan and Martha Kent. It's not really the story. They kind of changed the continuity of that story. Same way Superman, he has these little children around him. He has this one girl on his lap. Superman saying, "Do you want me to bounce you a little higher?" The little kid saying, "I would prefer if you didn't." Oh yeah, okay. I'll just little bit more. So anyway, Superman is being asked apparently by John Denver, because the kid is saying, "Tell us, Superman, was it far out? Living in another world? Did you like it?" Well, Superman's saying, "Listen, I was only a little kid. I didn't spend much time there, but because of my super memory, I remember everything that happened there. And I remember that my mom, who's kind of like, she kind of looks like Hot Lois. And maybe Superman has that kind of Oedipus complex thing. Sometimes he would have trouble sleeping, and his mom would always kind of tell a story. And the thing is that whenever his Kal-El's mom needed him to sleep, she would tell him the story about the princess and the glass treatment. And the creative team's a little different. We have Elliot Magden. He wrote the story. We have art by Kurt Swan and Dick Giordano. A much greater improvement here. Lois, Kal-El's mom looks just like Lois Lane. She looks so beautiful. I'm gonna turn the page. So anyway, apparently there was this princess. There's a little bit of Star Wars in this too. Apparently this princess, we're told one day, long ago and far away, a young princess, and she's wandering through the glass forest. Now, the princess has been told that this is a very dangerous place and that you should not be walking around unescorted. However, she's an adventurous young woman, and she wants to take a look for herself. And she's of that age where she feels confident that she's not going to do anything stupid. But the thing is, as she's walking through, she encounters a thought monster. These are sort of these, I guess, pterodactyl or paradactyl. Back when I knew what dinosaurs were called, there was this one particular one that had the 3 horns and was kind of built like a tank. This is the thought monster is very similar to that one, but the thing is, it has like this LCD screen where whatever the monster is thinking is broadcasted onto that screen. The monster sees the attractive young princess, kind of a I would say kind of a Lana Lang type, kind of a really pretty redhead here, and kind of like what's her name, Julianne Phillips, is her name. Anyway, gummies. So anyway, now the thing is, she can't hide behind a tree or anything because again, it's all made of glass. So they see her. She's able to climb up the tree amazingly. Given that this is a glass structure, so she's out of the range of the thought monster. But the thing is, the thought monster still wants to munch on this pretty young thing here. So so the princess is kind of stuck here. On one hand, she's safe in the tree, but on the other hand, she's stuck in the tree. And apparently there's a bird, a Kira bird. And the princess is saying, please stay with me. I need someone to talk to. You're a bird. You have a bird brain. Our intellects are kind of equal here. And if nothing else, if I need a distraction, I can grab you, throw you at the thought monster. While the thought monster is munching on you, I can kind of get out of this tree and run away. I didn't mean to say all that, but you kind of get me. So the princess here, she's kind of bemoaning her fate. She's saying, listen, I was told better and I knew better, but I didn't act better. And I kind of need some help here. So can you help me out, little birdie? And turn the page. Kind of has an Anne Margaret feel to her. Like, bye-bye, birdie. So anyway, the thought monster still wants to munch on the princess. And she's pleading with the bird to help her. I guess she thinks she's thinking the Protector, the John Cena series that was so good. You remember when Eagly when he was giving instructions to Eagly, the Peacemaker, giving instructions to Eagly to do something. She thinks that this bird can act like Eagly. So anyway, the bird cries out, help, help. The princess is saying, hey, I tried to pet it, and it flew off. And now she's all alone here. Gotta say, the princess kind of sporting some double D's here. And she's wearing a strapless and braless outfit here. But it turns out that as this drama is going on, there's a woodsman. And he's there. He's chopping down glass trees. And the thing is, he uses a kind of a vibration device to determine which trees are best to kind of chop down or chip away at, because these things are made of glass. The bird flies toward the woodsman here, or the glassman here. He doesn't like these birds because apparently these birds are kind of like woodpeckers, but for glass trees. So he's thinking it's going to ruin, whatever money he's going to make out of this. But then the bird cries out, help, Renee, glass forest. And the glassman, he's surprised by this. He's saying, what the hell did you just say? Say it again. Say it again. And the bird says it again. And the glassman, he notices that these birds have this, kind of strange behavior where they will mimic voices of people that he's heard. So the thing is, the glassman, he's deducted that, hey, someone had told him this. And he's kind of guessing that it happened fairly recently. But the thing is, he wants to check it out, see what's going on there. Because, someone actually could be, in trouble. And he's an expert at being in this forest, so he would know how to handle certain situations. Gonna turn the page. So anyway, eventually the glassman, he does come across the princess. He recognizes her. It's Princess Renee, and she's the heiress to this kingdom that I can't pronounce. And he sees that clearly this woman is in need of a rescue. The princess doesn't understand how he came across her. The glassman saying, "Listen, a little birdie told me." And what the glassman does is that he breaks off a glass branch and he whacks the thought monster right in the butt. And the thought monster doesn't like this, and he whacks the glassman right back with his hind legs. So the thing is, this guy doesn't have Kal-El powers, because I think they have the red sun. So he's kind of just a normal human here. He's still willing to fight. He got kicked really hard, but nevertheless, he's determined to kind of save this young woman. He has one gambit to go to, but he admits that he's thinking to himself that it will be risky. Can you turn the page? So what he does is that he takes the vibration device that he used for testing the trees, and he's using it to create these sound waves that are very disruptive to the thought monster. So he knows that when it's sort of like, the fingernails on the chalkboard, and it's having that type of effect on the thought monster. And the thought monster, he's very upset about it. We don't see any images from the screen on its head. So clearly its brain is sort of being affected in a negative way. The thought creature, he's very angry, and he rams right into one of the big glass trees here. And we're told that this is bothering the thought monster so much that he's leaving the area. And he's leaving this big trail here. Now, the thing is, the princess is upset because she thinks that her hero was stomped on as the creature was going. She's very remorseful for her actions. She realizes that her actions put him in that position. She's saying, "Oh, treeman, my treeman, you saved me only to be trampled into the grass itself, all because a spoilt little girl went where she shouldn't." Again, this is the editor saying, hey, any girls reading this, they got to know how to act. There was a ton of chauvinism from these comic book guys. However, she hears something, and she looks up, and she's very beautiful, beautifully drawn by Kurt here, and embellished correctly by Dick. And she finds that the tree man is alive, and he introduces himself as Elkin, and he says that he's been sounding this forest for a long time. So he's a guy who's been in that forest for a long time. He knows how to handle these thought monsters. You can turn the page. So anyway, it turns out that the two of them kind of hit it off. It's kind of like the princess, she's marrying the man of lower stature, but nevertheless, it's true love. And they have their ceremony together. They have the weird thing where it's similar to having sex in Demolition Man, where you're connected mentally with another person, and again, this is where they had it here in Krypton. The two fell in love. They're beautiful people. They're gonna have beautiful children. They came across the Kira bird that had helped them, but the thing is, the Kira bird never spoke again. So when the Kira bird did speak, it was an important moment. So it's almost like fate or providence came into it, where this bird needed to speak when he needed to speak the most, and that is getting these two together. Kal-El, young Kal-El, he says to Mom, "Mommy, tell nice made-up story. Now Kal-El want glass water." And apparently the story was too good, because mom is saying, "Oh, he's still awake. He was still listening to him." And Superman is explaining to the kids in the orphanage that he knew it was a made-up story because there are no birds on Krypton that could speak. So he said, I knew this was made up. One of the kids asked, what's so unbelievable about a talking bird? After all, on Earth, there are talking birds and parrots and so forth. But you don't really expect us to believe in things like a glass forest and thought monsters. And Superman was on his good behavior until this point. He waited until the second to last panel before clowning him. And he says, you're missing the point, kids. So he basically saying, listen, kids, I told you a story and you were too stupid to understand what I was talking about. You effing idiots. You were so close. And I tell a simple story that was told to me when I was an infant. And you couldn't understand it. God damn, you're stupid. So, Superman's explaining, listen, what's unbelievable in one world is very believable in another. Do you understand that, you dumbasses? And the kid answers back, I'm not so sure I dig you, Superman, but you sure have a far-out imagination. And kind of Greg Brady ends the story there. Superman is just shaking his head about what a bunch of dummies these kids are. So I'm going to go into the letters page. Take a look here. The first letter is saying, listen, I like Denny O'Neil and I like Elliot Magnum, but in between those guys, the guys you have writing for Superman suck. Which means that he's saying Carrie Bates sucks. So he's saying, listen, there are 3 regular writers for Superman, and goddamn, two of them are really good, and I'll name them, and the one who sucks, you can kind of figure it out. It's also talking about Morgan Edge. What happened was Morgan Edge was originally introduced as sort of an agent of Darkseid. But the thing is, I think what happens, they kind of liked the character, but they couldn't have him as an agent of Darkseid. So apparently what happened was there was some type of kidnapping where the real Morgan Edge was sort of taken hostage while Darkseid's agent was doing his damage. And apparently the false one eventually was killed in action. And but some fans were like, hey, we kind of like Morgan Edge. And they brought him back saying, hey, he was just being held hostage. And he's also talking about the world of Krypton. And he's like taking it very seriously. He's kind of tired of these trite, meaningless stories like the one I just read. And he's saying, listen, if you're going to do a world of Krypton, it has to be meaningful. It has to have something to do with the continuity of the planet. And it has to be a masterpiece. And he won't accept anything less. Because Tom here from Washington is not going to spend his 20 cents if Superman has a crappy Kryptonian story in it. He's also defending Bob Osner's inking, saying it's just as good as Murphy Anderson. Murphy Anderson was one of the legendary Superman artists. So I guess Bob is getting a lot of heat, but Tom says, hey, I kind of like this guy. Editorial says, we're doing the things you're asking for. This issue, Vince Colletta inked the Superman story. How do you like his work? And he said, no, I don't like it at all. Okay, you're going to go to the second letters from Lynn from Teaneck, New Jersey. He's talking about Superman number 271, saying Superman had too easy a job dealing with Brainiac. And apparently part of the story involved using a lot of nonsense words. So I think Superman was sort of overloading Brainiac's brain and kind of overstimulating it. There was an episode of Star Trek where Kirk and the members of the crew had done that to a group of androids. And they were asking them questions like, I always lie all the time. Am I telling the truth or am I lying? And their computer brains couldn't handle it. The next letter is from Bob from Regal Park. That's in Queens. Again, he's talking about the story that Elliot Magnan. There's a lot of references to old British dude, old 19th century jurist, old science fiction writer. Again, that was to confuse Brainiac, but he's making all these references. I think the writers are trying to figure out exactly what he was going for. And apparently there were a whole bunch of references that you had to figure out, and these kids are just writing in saying, "Oh, I guess this, I guess that." So the kids were stimulated by this issue. The last letter is from David from White Plains. Superman is far better than Captain Marvel. Shazam is much too infantile. For instance, the talking tiger is not nearly as good as, quote, the man who murdered Metropolis. This was a great issue. The art was exceptional. The story, superb. Quote, the Warriors of Lightning Valley was just as good as the lead story. So chalk up one vote for Superman, the greatest. And fuck that Shazam guy. And editorials answering back. Your vote is duly recorded. The mail seems to be running pretty even in the battle for the top sales of the 1970s. Anyone who hasn't sent in his or her views, we would like to hear from you. And that's it. And that is my review of Superman 275, and I hope to have more reviews up soon. Bye.